Pardon the title. I hope more readers just like yourself have actually read this one already, and you may very well be a fan of the book already. The book, of course, I'm talking about is Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, an inquiry into values. It is actually one of my favorite books, and a book that I've read many, many times, and a book that I recommend to many people, which is why I'm recommending it to you today too. The reader's guide at the end of the book actually sums it up perfectly, calling it essentially 3 books in one. One thread is an account of a father and son's motorcycle trip, and the second thread being a philosophical meditation on the concept of quality, and the third strand being the story of a man pursued by the ghost of his former self.
Except for the wind through the screens of the motel window, it is quiet. The thought of all that wind sweeping towards us across the open field of the prairie is a tranquil one, and I feel lulled by it. The wind rises and then falls, then rises and sighs, and falls again from so many miles away. "Did you ever know a ghost?" Chris asks. I am half asleep. "Chris," I say, "I knew a fellow once who spent all his life doing nothing but hunting for a ghost, and it was just a waste of time, so go to sleep." I realized my mistake too late. "Did he find him?" "Yes, he found him, Chris." I keep wishing Chris would just listen to the wind and not ask questions. "What did he do then?" "He thrashed him good." "Then what?" "Then he became a ghost himself." Somehow, I had the thought this was going to put Chris to sleep, but it's not, and it's just waking me up. "What is his name?" "No one you know." "But what is it?" "It doesn't matter." "Well, what is it anyway?" "His name, Chris, since it doesn't matter, is Phaedrus. It's not a name you know." "Did you see him on the motorcycle in the storm?" "What makes you say that?" "Sylvia said she thought you saw a ghost." "That's just an expression." "Dad?" "This had better be the last question, Chris, or I'm going to become angry." "I was just going to say you sure don't talk like anyone else." "Yes, Chris, I know that. It's a problem. I'll go to sleep. Good night, Dad. Good night." A half hour later, he is breathing sleepfully, and the wind is still strong as ever, and I am wide awake. There, out in the window in the dark, this cold wind crossing the road into the trees, the leaves shimmering flecks of moonlight. There is no question about it. Phaedro saw all of this. What he was doing here I have no idea, and why he came this way I will probably never know. But he has been here, steered us onto this strange road, has been with us all along. There is no escape. I wish I could say that I don't know why he is here, but I'm afraid I must now confess that I do. The ideas, the things I was saying about science and ghosts, and even that idea this afternoon about caring and technology, they are not my own. I haven't really had a new idea in years. They are stolen from him, and he has been watching, and that is why he is here.
The literal plot is deceptively simple. It's a road trip that starts in Minnesota and winds through the Dakotas, Montana, and beyond. But this physical journey is only the surface. Beneath it lies an intense psychological and philosophical exploration, an inner journey of self-reconciliation and intellectual resurrection. Our writer and narrator, Pirsig, is a thoughtful, analytical man who formerly lived under a different identity, a brilliant professor known as Phaedrus. This past version of himself was obsessed with a metaphysical idea he called quality, which eventually led him to a mental collapse and required him to have electroconvulsive therapy. As he travels with his son, the writer reflects on Phaedrus's theories and unravels the personal history that led to his breakdown. Pirsig is essentially haunted by his former self, and this dual identity forms one of the novel's central tensions. Now, in real life, Pirsig had an IQ of 170. He was a child prodigy and suffered from schizophrenia and depression. The book mirrors much of his life experience, including his philosophical inquiries and struggles with mental illness. It is a very complex book. It is a multi-layered work. It taps into ideas of travel, of course, philosophy, and horror. On one level, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance is a great American road novel, akin to On the Road or Travels with Charlie. It captures the meditative and often surreal feeling of long motorcycle rides across vast landscapes. The act of traveling becomes a metaphor for discovery and reflection, and a time for the father to bond with his son. Through these travels, the novel captures a sense of openness, freedom, and confrontation with nature and self. At its core, the book is a dense philosophical treatise. Pirsig's narrator offers extended philosophical discussions that probe concepts of quality, the divide between classical and romantic understanding, and the limitations of Western rational thought. These two modes of thinking reoccur throughout the book itself. There's the classical understanding being logical, analytical, focused on underlying form and function, for example, like how the motorcycle works. Next to that, or contrasting with that, is the romantic understanding, more intuitive, aesthetic, and focused on the surface appearance and experience. Pirsig tries to reconcile these opposite thoughts to the idea of quality, which he describes as a source of all things, a pre-intellectual experience that precedes logic and feeling. Personally, I was most interested in the book's third thread being a horror story of the mind. Beneath the travelogue and the philosophy lies a chilling psychological horror story. The narrator is haunted quite literally by the ghost of his former self, Phaedrus. The creeping return of Phaedrus's thoughts and persona threatens the narrator's sanity and his relationship with his son. The horror comes from within, a descent into the labyrinth of obsession and fractured identity. Its mix of philosophy and narrative provides something for every reader. Travelers, thinkers, mechanics, artists, and seekers. At a time when the world feels increasingly fragmented between science and spirituality, productivity and purpose, the book's call for integration feels more urgent than ever. But it is not an easy read. In fact, it will challenge you. It's a book that respects the reader's intelligence. It asks us not only to follow a story, but to think deeply, to ask questions, and to wrestle. And on top of all that, it's also just beautifully written. When it was first released, it had massive initial impact and cultural influence. Upon its release in 1974, the book became a surprise bestseller. Despite being rejected by over 100 publishers, which was a record at the time, it really struck a chord with a generation searching for meaning in a post-60s world. There is the book's counterculture appeal. The book echoed the concerns of the 60s generation, disillusioned by materialism, war, and rigid social norms. It explores the ideas of individualism. It explored personal authenticity in a mechanical, impersonal world, a theme that still holds strong. Its cultural footprint still runs deep. It references music, essays, and even corporate thinking. Steve Jobs himself praised it. It remains one of the most widely read philosophy books of the 20th century. So this is why I recommend it to you. If you've not heard of it before, go get it now. Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance is more than a book. It is, as I mentioned, it is a challenge, it is a mirror, it is a meditation, and it's not always easy. And it's certainly not for everyone, but for those willing to engage, it can be transformative. And as Pirsig reflects towards the end, the real cycle you're working on is the cycle called yourself. Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. 10 out of 10 book.